Okay, so question 4 is asking us to find the absolute max and the absolute min, which is really, they're asking us to apply the extreme value theorem, which again, you don't have to know the name extreme value theorem, but what extreme value theorem tells you is that the absolute max and absolute min will occur at either the end points, which are going to be given to you in the question, or at the critical numbers, which we need to be experts at anyway for other question types. We've looked at already in just a couple classes, talked about critical numbers a few different ways, and there's going to be a few more ways we use critical numbers also. So critical numbers are when the first derivative is 0 or undefined. So the derivative of sine something is cosine something. You should think about chain rule, but in this case, the derivative of the inside is just 1, so we didn't have to do chain rule here. Now, trying to figure out where this equals 0 might be the hardest part of this question. So what I did is I thought about the unit circle, and sine or cosine is 0 when x is 0. So at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. But that doesn't mean I want x to be pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. I want x plus pi over 4 to give me pi over 2 and x plus pi over 4 to give me 3 pi over 2, so that I'm taking the cosine of an angle that actually gives me 0. So I just made an equation. What could I add to pi over 4 to make it be pi over 2? That's pi over 4. And what could I add to pi over 4? What plus pi over 4 would give me 3 pi over 2? Because the cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0. So subtract pi over 4 over, you get 5 pi over 4. Yeah, because this is like 6 pi over 4, so subtract 1 is 5 pi over 4. Yeah. Are you okay with those critical numbers? Okay. So now again, by the way, you don't have to say, hey, I'm testing critical numbers and endpoints. You're never going to lose points if you don't write that. I just think it's a good habit because it forces you every time to remember, these are the things I'm supposed to check. This is what extreme value theorem tells me to check. Now, be careful not to plug these numbers into the derivative. The derivative is going to tell you the direction of the graph. I don't want that. I want to know the values. I'm trying to find the max value, the min value. So plug in these x values into the function. The sine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2, which as a decimal is about 0.7. If I plug in 7 pi over 4 and add 1 pi over 4, that's like 8 pi over 4, which reduces to 2 pi. The sine of 2 pi is 0. If I plug in pi over 4, add pi over 4 is pi over 2. The sine at pi over 2 is 1. And then when I plug in 5 pi over 4, add 1 pi over 4, that's like 6 pi over 4, which reduces to 3 pi over 2. And the sine at 3 pi over 2 is negative 1. Now the real work is done. The biggest number over here is your absolute max, and the smallest number over here is your absolute min. Now, before I started this question, I told you I felt kind of silly at the end and realized, wait, I really should have known this. This should make sense with what I know about the unit circle. Unless we really restricted these angles, just think about the unit circle. Sine starts off as 0, it gets as big as 1, it gets as small as negative 1. So unless you really restrict these angles, sine is going to be as much as 1 and as low as negative 1, which is what we discovered here. So starting off at 0, but then I add pi over 4 to it, I was really starting here. So from here to here, the biggest sine value is 1 and the smallest sine value is negative 1. So I feel like you could have maybe answered that if you're really good and really comfortable with unit circle. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure, maybe the most important thing today is this idea of a candidate's test that I'm highlighting. This is what they consider showing your work for these questions. even if somehow you could do that in your head and you didn't have to put pencil to paper to say what the answers were, the highlighted part is the showing your work part, showing that you understood which ones could possibly be max and mins and to test those, which ones are actually candidates and what are not candidates. So you wouldn't lose points if you tested other X values. You probably would lose points if you don't test all 4 of those X values though. So always test the endpoints and always test the critical numbers.